Welcome to this session. Today we're going to talk about breaking into product management. My name is Sonali Chhabria, and I will try to provide some helpful tips as to how to break into this field. We're going to cover a lot today, but as a quick overview, first I'll start with a quick background on myself, and I'll briefly talk about how I made this transition. Second, I'll talk about understanding the PM role. We'll go over what a PM does, and hopefully this will help you understand if this is the right fit for you. Third, we will cover what you can do in your role today to get relevant PM experience to help land your first role. Lastly, and this is the most important section, we'll go over how you can go about finding your first PM role and how you can prep for PM interviews. I'll also cover the type of questions that you might get in an interview. So first thing first, I wanted to introduce myself. I'm currently a marketplace product manager at Uber Eats. I focus on pricing for our driver partners, where our goal is to deliver transparent and predictable earnings to our partner community. In the past, I was a quantitative research analyst at an asset management firm and have also worked in tech consulting at Deloitte for a couple of years. In terms of education, I did my master's in financial engineering from UCLA and undergrad in computer science from University of Mumbai. So, as you can see from my background, the beauty of this field is that there is no fixed path of getting into product management. You can come from finance, you can be a product analyst, or you can move from engineering to product. The key over here is to leverage your strengths to your advantage and drive insights into how you can improve your product for your customers and for your business. So, with that, let's move on to the next section, which is understanding the PM role. So, what does a product manager do? The reason that I asked this question is that everyone has a different understanding of the PM role, and some people end up loving it, while some end up hating it. So, it's very important that we define the role before we talk about how to get there. So, as a product manager, your days are made up of three types of work. First is shaping the product, which involves talking to customers, understanding their needs and pain points, talking to internal stakeholders, and understanding what's important to them, gathering insights using data, running brainstorm sessions, shaping the vision and strategy of the product. Second is shipping the product. So now that you know what to do, can you collaborate effectively with the team to set project timelines? Can you help make trade off decisions while planning and later on when projects are behind deadlines? How do you unblock your team members if something comes up? Lastly, is syncing the people, which is basically getting everyone on the same page. This includes aligning your team around your clear strategy and vision, getting and maintaining buy in on your priorities, strategy, and vision from external stakeholders, communicating project status to your team, to its external stakeholders and to the company at large, and building relationship with team members and stakeholders. So to summarize, the role of a product manager is to get your team together and use available resources to create value for both your customer and business. So you can create value for your customers and deliver business impact separately, but doing both is where the magic happens. Now let's go over the skills you need to accomplish these. The first and most important skill set is to develop a product sense. This includes empathizing with your customer. Can you come up with creative ideas for the product? Do you have enough domain knowledge? Do you know what your competitors are doing? What is your vision for the product? Second is analytical sense. Can you use data to gather insights about your product? Can you come up with estimations to measure business impact? Do you demonstrate critical thinking? Third is execution sense. Can you project manage the successful completion of the project? Can you align internal and external stakeholders to work together? How do you manage trade offs if there are any blockers? Lastly, is leadership sense. So, can you effectively influence your team, which includes technical influence, communication, and research management? Can you bring clarity to your team? How well do you manage expectations with leadership to get buy in for your product? So, in order to be a good product manager, you don't need to be the best in all. So, find your strengths, double down on them, and work on building the rest. Moving on to the next section, which is how you can go about building PM experience in your current role without the formal title. This is a topic that I generally get most questions about. So let's look at what are some of our available options. The first thing that you can do is to build something. You need to build. You need to show some experience. This could be a fully functional app or even a Figma prototype. So you may wonder, how should I go about doing this? I'm not an engineer, so how do I bring my ideas to life? One way to do this is to partner with someone. It could be a friend or a colleague who you can reach out to with your idea and ask if they are willing to collaborate on it as a side project. It'll not only help build your profile, but even theirs. You can even try participating in product hackathons, where you can get paired with other engineers and designers, and within 24 to 48 hours, you'll have built something to add to your resume. If you're unable to do this, then even building a prototype of your idea in Figma is enough. So, Figma is a design tool and it is extremely intuitive to use. You can also blog about something. Pick a product. It could be any random product in your surrounding and talk about how you'd improve it. The idea over here is to get your storytelling right. As a product manager, you need to be able to convince stakeholders. So, effective storytelling is a very important skill. And the earlier you do it, the better. Some good case study examples can be found at growth.design. I've added the link to growth.design in this slide. As you'll see from these case studies, the idea is to be observant about things in your surrounding and try to see how you can improve them. In addition, if you're working in a tech firm, try and reach out to the PM on your team and ask if there's something that you can do to help. PMs are usually constrained on bandwidth, so help is always appreciated. You can also try and reach out to your manager to see if they can connect you with a PM who needs some help. In this way, you would have ended up building your resume. In case you're hesitant to do that, you can start by brainstorming ideas on how you'd improve the product that you're working on. Write a one-pager document and share it with your product manager to get their feedback. Your goal over here is to be appreciated and start being visible. Because if any openings come up in your team, then you should be top of mind for your product manager. Plus, you already have background on what the team is working on. You should also always try and build your network, both within and outside the company. Become a part of a community such as Product School or even product communities on Facebook. You should be open to reaching out to people and asking them about their experience. This is the group that you're going to lean on when you're looking for your next job. So try and build your network as soon as you can. Find a PM mentor, try and shadow meetings led by PM, and learn from their experiences. And if you're unable to find a PM mentor, you can always learn from inspirational product leaders such as Lenny, Sriram, and Shreyas. I personally have learned a lot about product management from these leaders and still continue to do so. Your goal from all of these options is to demonstrate that you will be a good fit for the PM role. And for that, you need to show initiative. Okay, now let's say that you've done all that and now you want to land your first PM role. Let's start with the application process. First things first, you should start by revamping your online presence. How you market yourself matters. You can start with your LinkedIn profile, add all the places that you worked at, what you did in the role, and tailor the description to showcase skills that are relevant to the product management role. If you worked on side projects, add that there as well. The next step is to revamp your resume. Try and stick to one page so that you make your resume concise. Use the STAR principle. STAR basically stands for situation, task, action, and result. Use this framework to tell a clear story through your resume and demonstrate impact. Remember, most folks will spend less than 30 seconds on your resume, so be clear on what you want their takeaway to be. Use your storytelling skills over here as well. The next step is to network. You reach out to hiring managers and recruiters on LinkedIn. Go with the expectation that less than 5% of people will reply. So maximize your funnel in order to get a response. Send at least 20 to 30 messages a day or even more. And then apply. Apply to all open roles, both internally within your company and even externally. Apply to both roles that you like and that you're not so interested about. The reason that I say this is that the more you interview, the more comfortable you get with the process. You should also have your story ready at all times. Have an elevator pitch ready. Questions such as tell me about yourself, or walk me through a project that you worked on, or why I should hire you are pretty standard across all interviews. So have an answer prepared for these. Prepare for interviews in advance. I personally found cracking the PM interview and exponent to be extremely useful resources. Lastly, and I cannot stress this enough, practice, practice, and practice even more. The reason that I say this is that interviewing is a skill, and any skill can be improved upon with more practice. Practice interview questions with your friend, partner, or even a colleague. In the start, it may be extremely uncomfortable, but the more you do it, the better you will be. It would be best if you can also practice with someone who takes PM interviews so that they can give you feedback on where you can improve. Try leveraging the product school community and ask folks if anyone is free to take a mock interview. Most people are happy to help, so take advantage of that. Next, we'll go over how to find a PM role. I like to think of these in terms of the scale of difficulty. The easiest and most straightforward option is to switch within your company itself. And even easier to find a role within your team itself. You already have context on the product and know the people you're working on. However, if that's not available, then try looking out for formal PM transition processes. A lot of companies such as Google, Facebook, Uber have formed PM transition processes for people interested in transitioning to the product management role. Take advantage of the opportunity. The other benefit of working at large companies is that they almost always have open product manager opportunities. Utilize the network that you've built and reach out to hiring managers within the company. You can also leverage your manager and talk to them about your career growth and have them vouch for you during the transition. Big companies are usually good at caring about their employees' interests and supporting them. Another thing, um, the other option, which I've seen a lot of PMs, aspiring PMs do, is to join a startup. Smaller companies are usually more resource constrained and hence are open to hiring folks capable of handling multiple roles. The hardest option, in my opinion, is to find a PM role at another large company. A lot of big companies have rotational product manager programs. These are great for fresh graduates and for folks who have 0 to 2 years of experience. Another option is to try and find a role parallel to your current skill set. Say, for example, you come from a financial background, you can try exploring PM roles in, say, a fintech startup. Use the skills that you have to your advantage. You can also make a lateral move to a big company and then look to transition to PM. The key over here is to find companies that have product manager transition opportunities available and would be supportive of your growth. Lastly, you can network and find someone who's open to take a chance on you. All the things that you did to demonstrate PM experience will help you here. Now, once you're able to get a PM interview, there are typically 4 things that a product manager is tested on. The first is product design. Second is execution. Third is technical ability. And lastly, your leadership and communication skills. Technical ability is not always asked in all companies anymore, but some companies like Google, Spotify, and even some startups still focus on this interview, so I wanted to cover it. I'll cover all of these in more detail in the next slides, but just to give you a quick overview, the product design interview tests your product knowledge, creativity, instinct, and awareness. This will be the meat of the interview. In the execution interview, what you're tested on is whether you can logically think through vague and undefined problems and how you can use data to guide your decisions. The technical interview tests if you have a high level understanding of the technical aspects of your product. You do not need to have a computer science degree, but just enough knowledge to collaborate effectively with the engineers on your team. Lastly, the leadership interview is mostly behavioral, where the interviewer tries to gauge how you work with people, handle conflicts, and drive alignment in order to drive your team to success. Product manager interviews are extremely tactical, as all these skill sets are actually required in your day to day job. Let's start with the product design interview. This is going to be the meat of the interview, and this is very core to the PM role. Generally, these questions test your ability to have this spidey sense to understand how to make products and what are successful products. They'll be testing your creative ability, product vision, and some other skills. Here, I would propose that you focus on coming up with creative ideas. There are usually three types of questions that are asked in this section. First is, what is your favorite product and how you would improve it? This is something that you should always go prepared with. Have one example for a mobile product, one for a website only product, and even one about a physical product. Some interviewers may try to surprise you by asking to describe a physical product, so go prepared. You may be asked this question during the initial rounds of the interview, or maybe even during the recruiter screen. What they are basically looking for is if you observe things around you and develop an opinion. Next type is to design a brand new product. This can be anything such as design an alarm clock for the blind. The intent over here is to focus on your creative thinking ability. Remember that the set of users may not necessarily be specified here, so ask clarifying questions. Remember to take a user first approach and think of out of the box ideas to differentiate yourself. The last and most common type of question is to take an already existing product and think of ways that you'll improve it. Be prepared to talk about products of the company that you're interviewing at. Remember all the preparation that you did earlier to blog about product improvements? That will help you here. Remember that there are no right or wrong answers to all the questions here. So try and make the interview conversational and check in with your interviewer frequently. All these questions are something that you'll end up doing as a product manager, where you can either work on a team that already has a product and you'll be expected to think of ways to improve it or launch an altogether new product. Once PMs have decided what problems to solve and what features to build, it's time to execute. These type of interviews focus on how you prioritize features, measure success of the product, and diagnose issues. It is a very analytical and metric-focused interview. A few things that the interviewer is looking for here are how you go about setting the right goals for a product and measure against them, how you identify, frame, and evaluate trade-offs, how you analyze and debug problems, how you set up your team for success. Some commonly asked questions could be either a diagnose this scenario type of question, where you'll be given a scenario and asked to diagnose what's going on. An example of such a question could be something like, hey, Uber rider cancellations have gone up by 10%. What's going on? The key over here is to focus on a framework and cover all possibilities in depth. Or they could also ask you how you go about setting goals for your product. An example questions can be for, say, how would you go about setting goals and measure success for Facebook notifications? You can also be asked how you go about prioritizing features. This type of question is usually combined with the product design questions, where you brainstorm a few features and then prioritize which feature you should implement. The key here is to prioritize based on available resources, user, and business impact. In the technical interview, you're being tested on whether you can have a detailed product discussion with your peers, which could be engineers or data scientists. The goal is to understand if you have enough technical knowledge to estimate timelines effectively, or how well can you convey technical requirements to engineers and relay concerns in simple terms to non-technical stakeholders. Not all companies ask this question today, but you can generally expect to receive such questions at smaller companies. Technical questions are usually not coding interview questions. So don't focus too much prep on this type of question unless you know you'll be asked this. Some commonly asked questions here are to describe the technical architecture of a product that you've worked on. So it's really important to understand the core product that you work on, and you should be expected to be questioned on it. You could also be asked to estimate the number of weeks required to build a simple app. Say, for example, an app to book movie tickets. You could also be asked to explain a complicated technical concept in simple terms. So, for example, explain cloud computing to your grandmother. The focus over here should be on simplifying technical details as much as possible. For leadership interviews, you should be expected to be asked behavioral questions which focus on your past experiences. This interview is most likely going to be common across companies, and hence they have the highest ROI if you prepare them in advance. You could be asked to describe situation where you've resolved conflicts or to describe a project in depth. Have two or three examples ready for each question type. Lastly, some closing thoughts. Don't stress too much about interviewing. View this as a learning opportunity and enjoy the process. Ask for help when you need it. Reach out to the product manager community, peers, and friends. Most people are happy to help. Most importantly, trust yourself. Be confident, and everything will work out. That's all I had prepared for today. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or Twitter. I always try to respond. So let me know if there's anything that I can do to help this community. I can do resume reviews, talk about my experience working on marketplace products, or even tell you more about product management. If you'd like to get the slides, you can go to bit.ly/breaking into product. And if you want to connect with me, you can reach out to me on any of these social channels. Thank you for listening.